From the book, I Dream a World, the story of Miss Winson and Dovie Huson. We lived in this black community, and those families were very protective of their children, especially the girls. White men would walk the trails where we had to go wash. If they caught a girl alone, they'd R-word her. Parents were afraid to say too much. You might be visited by the 3Ks that night. There wasn't much they could do about it. My mama and daddy had 14 children. They raised 12. Our mother was a missionary and father was a minister, so we were brought up very religious. My daddy was brave. He had that hostility in him because they hung his brother. The 3Ks would come through here. Other people would come to our house for safety. My daddy was not afraid, and that taught us we was never afraid of them. We petitioned the school board to desegregate the public school. That was the first step. The petition carried 52 names. They took all these names and put it up in the courthouse where everybody could see. White people pressured all but 13 to remove their names. Really, it was 6 that stayed. Dovie, she was the leader. I give her credit. She was a brave woman, here with 10 children. I borrowed a little money from the bank to do my planting. They called me in the bank. The banker says, "We have been mighty good to you. We lent you money." I said, "Yes, but I've been paying it back, haven't I?" He said, "Well, yes, but we have to have our money or else we're going to foreclose." I said, "I'm not going to move my name from the petition. You'll just have to foreclose." I said, "The stock is there when you get ready to pick them up." They took all I had. I had 7 cows and 1 mule. My daughters were sitting at the table here getting out their homework, and they threw a boom boom there, and it knocked that window out. They came here putting boom booms in the mailbox. I heard them go off. She called me and said, "They're on their way down there." I called my boys. One got one strap and one got the other. And just as they drove up and put the boom boom in the mailbox, my boys started pew-pewing. They just lined that car up and down. The more they did to us, the meaner we got. Miss Winson says, "Our husbands was not as brave as we was. We had to protect our men. If my husband had been in my place, he wouldn't have made it, because black men have always been the target." That voter's registration was something else. It took me 2 years to get registered. It took Dovie 18 months. One time we went into the courthouse and we saw a bunch of great big old white men clustered around the door where we had to go in and register. I say, "Dovie, they got us today." She said, "Let's go down in the basement and pray." We went down in the basement and she prayed. They said I was too mean to pray. That was Miss Winson. Dovie talked to the Lord about it and she said, "Let's go. There's a shield over us. They can't touch us." So we walked way down that long hall. They had the door covered and were clustered around. And do you know, we walked through those men and just rubbed them. Excuse me, and they just turned their backs. When we went in to register, they would come in and put a card down, says Winson. "It was just big enough for 2 eyes, Dovie says. "It says, the eyes of the clan is upon you. You have been identified as the white knights of the 3Ks, says Winson. When you go to the register, they give you a sheet of paper and an article in the Mississippi Constitution. When you get through writing it, then you got to interpret it. And so you do all this, and then I'd go back and they'd say, 'The board said y'all didn't pass.' I'd say, 'What board?' 'Well, we got a board.' And they'd say, 'Y'all didn't pass.' And we'd go back again. A lawyer from the Justice Department came here and investigated. When we went back to register, the registrar gave me this thing to fill out. Again, instead of filling it out, I wrote down there, it said what it meant and meant what it said." He say, "Well, so you passed," Winson says. "We really taught them some lessons," Dovie says. "That's the reason we were so educated, because we taught them." I've never walked down the hall with a cap and gown on, but I walked down the hall in Washington. I lobbied for student loans, I lobbied for Social Security, and I lobbied for teachers, pay raises, and I've helped you get equal pay rights here in this county. So I'm an educator, says Winson. Winson and Dovie Huson were instrumental in democratizing voter registration, establishing preschool and nutritional programs.